Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Got my good buddy Luke here today. We've been, as a little local group, doing some training this afternoon, this evening, and we had some thoughts on our mind that kind of made us think of things. That's another good reason of being around like-minded people. You know, you can bounce ideas off of each other, and you tend to think of things you may not have thought before. And so we were talking about this, and of the need for people to really practice with their stuff, get familiar with it.
Yep.
If you have ideas of your plans, of whatever your plans are, have you actually trained with that?
Right.
Some of the things that you were saying about that it's necessary to kind of work out the kinks and everything.
Yeah, have a plan. It's good to think about stuff and run ideas through your head, but if that's all you're doing, then that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
You got to have that step process. Think about how you would react with your situation, because everybody's situation is different. Your living quarters. How can you defend your house? How can you, secure your property?
Mm-hmm.
Go out, do some drills. Not necessarily mean have to be leaping over barrels and doing spet nests.
Not
shooting.
that that's a bad thing to do.
I mean, if you're at that level, do it. But go out there, dry fire. Make sure you include the family, because if you're the only one training, you're the only one who's going to be prepared.
Absolutely.
Go out there and know where the stuff is on your property, where you can hide, where you can take shelter. Really get a lay of the land, especially. Know the lay of the land, 100%. Yeah. But go out there and, go out there with live ammo, throw some spent car casings in there, and do malfunctions.
Yeah.
You're wounded, How are you going to operate your rifle, your shotgun, your pistol? How are you going to transition between those? And remember that you're not just going to be you.
Right.
Hopefully. But worst case scenario, be prepared to be the last line of defense. Circle the wagons and remember the Alamo.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you get the whole family out there, because, you and I can sit around and talk all the time about, well, we should do this, we should do that, but we both have wife and kids. And that's a whole different factor in there. We may have this plan that we're going to do it this way, and we're going to run this way, and we're going to jump this, barrel and, leap and do all this kind of stuff. And then the wives are like carrying babies and kids running around. And so you need to not just think about this stuff. And then the next level, I'd say, is talk about it with them. And then finally, you need to actually get out there and do it. How do you function together? Does she understand, maybe hand signals or codes, or, does she know how to use the radios? Your children the same way. I mean, I know I'm from Tennessee originally, and you're from Kentucky originally. Very similar way we grew up. I grew up when you were old enough to keep the barrel out of the dirt, you could shoot a weapon.
That was it.
I mean,
you went to school, you had a gun in your vehicle, and it was just another day.
Yeah, and get your kids training. Some of the training we did today as a group, there was some pretty young kids there. I was impressed. It was a good deal.
10-year-olds.
Yep, and and this was 12 gauge shotguns. But get them out there and train and practice. I've said on the channel before, like a 9-10-year-old kid should be able to put a tourniquet on.
100%.
They should be able to, if you broke your leg, can they wrap it? I mean, that's pretty simple. Can they go find some sticks and splint that leg to those sticks?
Oh yeah.
They should be able to. That I think that's very appropriate at their age, 8, 9, 10 years old, to be able to do that. And so, get your family out and train in that way.
Yeah. And like, without omitting too much, just because of privacy, I have a platoon of children as far, and I have some young ones, some real young ones, and I have some in the middle, and I have a couple coming up. And I just talk to them and see, you can tell what kind of skill set you can teach them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we did a LERP over here one time,
Mm-hmm.
long range patrol, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm down for this." I said, "You're gonna carry a bag, minimum weight." They didn't even carry water. I carried all the water. I carried all the stuff because I knew that they're children, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I can do that." And when we got here, they were both
Yeah, they were.
almost falling on stretch. My daughter, she was on the ground.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
And they bounced back a lot faster. But I was like, okay, that was a good run, but you didn't have any weight.
Yeah.
You didn't carry water, and you wanted to stop, and you can't stop.
Yeah.
This was not so much a LERP as much as it was a if you have radio silence. Me and him lose radio silence. That's one of our things that, or with anybody, if I'm trying to get a hold of somebody and I can't get a hold of them, I'm going to show up.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm going to be ready for whatever's there. Whether, your electric's out or Cujo's, got you trapped in the car. But, children are very smart.
Mm-hmm.
And just because they're 4, 5, 6 years old, sure, you're not going to teach them how to operate crew-served weapons and stuff like that. And they probably shouldn't, but probably.
Maybe. Some might.
Yeah.
Some
My
might
son
be able
can
to.
run a crew-served weapon.
Yeah. Some
He's
could
10
be
years
able
old.
to.
He can do it.
Yeah.
He can take it apart and show you everything.
See?
But, it's just like anything else. Like, my daughter, she's learned how to sew. And so we're working on how do you sew up somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the children don't know what certain things are. We use certain medical things that aren't for prescribed medical purposes. We repurpose them, should I say. Like when we built IFACs, I showed them everything in their IFAC. They don't need to know what it's for, but they need to know what they're going to use it for.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to beat around the bush on the word of using like tampons to fill bullet holes. They'll save your life. We've been using them in the Army for 20 years for that purpose. But learning how, even your small ones, if they can't carry a weapon, they're too young, that's, I'm not saying you should all your children should be packing heat.
Right.
That would be silly.
The baby's probably a little too young.
Right, yeah. I mean, you can conceal heat underneath them.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of good movies give reference to with that. No, but seriously, like, you should have, even our youngest knows how to load magazines and stuff like that. So at the very least, that's his purpose. Or to keep brothers, some of the older ones to help with the small ones.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But everyone has to have a purpose.
Yep.
But they have to know, and you have to get out there, and you have to have your family with you, because you have to learn that feng shui. You have to learn how everyone works. And now, start off easy and say, we're going to do this. We're going to move from point A to point B. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Go through that. And then do it a little bit. And just, you can make it as easy like I did. Start off, we're going to take a walk.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to just walk around holding hands. And we're going to be in a formation. What's that, Dad? Well, this is what I need you to do. You're going to stand here. You don't have to get all crazy with it, all right? You don't need... I mean, if you have a 7-year-old knows what a rolling wedge is and herringbow's, fantastic. But they don't need to know that. Just the basics, really. Because, the times are coming when you're going to have to lend aid. You're going to have to. Yeah. If you're worth anything, your neighbor's going to need help. Your brother from another might need help. And it's not, we realize today, without doming anybody out, I mean, people just, you do what you can, but I mean, you really have to keep an eye on each other.
Right.
Sometimes bad things happen and it's an accident.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too much into that, but he almost got a 12 gauge air pocket in his rear end today. And
But that's why we train.
yeah, and you know, that guy was just doing the best he could.
Yeah.
And obviously he's sitting here, so he didn't catch one.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why you need to train your children. If the first time your children have to do something, you know, if you get hurt, your children, if they're of age to walk and talk, they should be able to at least bring you something and know what it is. Teach them the importance of cover and concealment, what the difference is.
Yeah.
Because we're living in some really perilous times, and when it hits, you know, it's there. And
I mean,
the training time is over.
They can understand, you know, certain things of radio communication. You know, how to decipher basic communications. I mean, it doesn't have to be some deep code, but just, you know, what the alphanumerics and stuff like that. I mean, there's things that young kids can handle. And I want to bring up, because I'm sure there's going to be those people out there in YouTube world say things like this, that, oh, my goodness, I can't believe you would do that with children. Children are just supposed to spend their entire existence sitting in front of a TV screen watching cartoons, and they're never supposed to experience anything hard or tough or violent or serious.
That's not how I grew up.
That's not how the vast majority of human beings that's existed has ever grown up. I mean, it's only until just recent times, the last few decades, that people really started raising their children in this coddled, and gentle, and, you know, I mean, you go back to even World War I and World War II. I mean, there were definitely underage, you know, below 17, 18-year-olds that were involved with that. And
Sir Victoria, you know, did great acts.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
You go back to the war between the states. I mean, there were 12, 13-year-olds.
100%, yeah.
You know, throughout all history, there's, you know, it's even at a young age, even 8 and 9-year-olds, you know, they had to do some pretty serious chores. You know, they were out there butchering chickens all by themselves. And,
well, I mean, you don't have to go that long to think about there's a reason why we have child labor laws.
Right.
You know, there's a difference, and you need to help this family, and I'm gonna stay at home because I got 14 kids working in the mines.
Right.
You know, being from Kentucky, that was a big problem. But the mine company didn't care, and nobody else did till there was laws about it.
Yeah. So the point is that children are capable, and I mean, I don't wish it on my children. I wish my children didn't have to see that kind of world, but I'm afraid that it's going to happen. That they are the generation that's really going to see the world completely change. You know, our children, I think they are that generation. So we have to be training them, because as tough as it is, I mean, maybe tough, maybe not, but for our generation, as tough as it is for our generation to stand up against the political stuff, the spiritual stuff, all of the evilness that's just consuming this planet. We at least were born and raised in a time period that we didn't have all the technology, that we were raised in a world that not only our families were traditional, it was normal to be a traditional family.
Yeah.
Like even if people weren't...
Not abstract.
Right. Even people that may not have been the most godly people, going to church on Sundays was not a weird thing.
Right.
You know, having a mom and a dad. And nowadays, things that were just basic things are just thrown out the window. And that's the world that our children have to grow up in.
Yeah, going and sitting down. We rarely go out to eat, but we had our anniversary last night. We went out, and everybody's on a cell phone. You don't ever see anybody hold hands around the table and ask the Father for his blessing on that food, or just sit there and spend time together. Yeah. And we've lost connection with each other. We've lost connection with Earth, and I'm not trying to get into hippie jibbery goo. I'm just saying, like, everyone's a consumer now, and that's all they know is how to consume. Yeah. And unfortunately, my experience overseas is the only thing being consumed are people. The machine, which is evil, mangling, because it doesn't care. Right. You know, if you can't defend yourself, even better. It doesn't have to work that hard. And I mean, the mechanism, which becomes, you know, you have Book of Eli situation where
Yeah.
people are going to do stuff because they can.
Right.
Like right now, you might have that neighbor who's a little ornery, and that neighbor that's really nice, and you're like, well, I can trust so and so because they're good people.
Right.
And then when it hits the fan,
Right.
you know,
you can trust him because he's more afraid of the law than and when that law is gone, or
right, and then the
that
crusty old
threat.
neighbor that you have, he might actually have your back, and the neighbor you thought was nice is
Yeah.
holding your children ransom for food and
Right,
water.
because he's terrified. He's not planned. He doesn't know what to do, and he's terrified. That our children, I mean, I can't promise you this, but I have a pretty good feeling that even if there's a chance that you and I won't see some of the really, really bad things, I think our their generation will. And we have to
Absolutely.
raise them up. Not just, I mean, definitely in a spiritual sense, like really as strong as possible as we can do spiritually, but also give them knowledge, like teach them skills,
Yeah.
teach them, that's why I'm been a huge advocate for homeschooling,
Yeah.
and teach them how to do the things that they need to do to survive, and then we as a group and as families
Yeah.
train and practice and make sure that we know what we're doing too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have all the cool high-speed gear in the world, but if you don't know how to use it, then it's garbage. I don't care.
Usually is garbage to
Yeah,
begin with.
I don't care if you got a $10,000 custom AR and a Gucci Glock. If you
Yeah.
don't know how to use it because you're not practicing with it, might as well throw it in the trash.
Yeah, I mean, running with some of the high speed stuff that I've been around, nobody's running Crimson Trace on all their pistols and
Mm-hmm.
and EOTechs on everything. I mean, for the most part, you have to go through everything with iron sights.
Yeah.
You have to prove yourself. It's a one-on-one basis. And I think that's not only that, but going back to the homeschool thing and all that stuff. I mean, everything in our civilization is so corrupt now.
Yeah.
You can't trust your children. I mean, when you talk about your children, you're putting them on a bus if they're in public school and you're shipping them off. Most people barely know the teachers that they have by name, more or less what they look like. Do they have an agenda? Because there's so many people have an agenda anymore.
Yes.
Because our college systems were flipped on us, which has happened throughout history of all the great civilizations that's came and gone. The higher learning cause a great perversion on the young minds to hate the older generations and the ways of things, and just without beating it up too much, like Jordan Peterson's been talking about, how we've made everything that's kept us alive and going in a good direction give us the greatest civilization that's existed thus far. Now everything's evil.
Yeah.
You're evil because you're a man. You're evil because you have a wife. You're evil for everything anymore.
Yeah,
right?
everything.
Yeah, and
I mean, the most basic things that all civilization has
it's
always
just-
agreed to, now it's evil.
yeah, I mean, they want you to speak a certain way and text a certain way, and I'm just like, the old saying is, when it becomes outlawed, I'll become an outlaw. And
Yeah.
I mean, they're outlawing without passing any legislature. When you can't get on there and make a video or a text or even in these open meetings with your communities, people being offended by the way you talk or because of whatever perceived notions. But
Right.
we really have to protect our children, and we need to teach them.
Yeah.
I mean, our generation did slack. I know
Yeah.
I did. I didn't teach my children from the beginning on
Yeah.
gardening
Our oldest,
and survival and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I taught them things forever, but for the last 4 years now, we've made everything we possibly can. I just always have my mind running, like, what can they learn from this?
Right.
If I'm going to go do something, whether it's working on one thing or the other, fixing things, building something, I'm like, here, this is why I'm using a brad. This is why I use a staple. This is how you use this. Fencing pliers, just everything. I just try to teach them everything I can think of.
Right.
Because there is a chance that we won't see it.
Right.
And that could be for a whole lot of things. There could be whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to say a bunch of everything because, you know, you're not allowed to anymore. But we could be taken out.
Right.
Naturally or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I want my children to be absolutely, as, you know, I want them to be able to say, oh, man,
Yeah.
I remember how to do this. Dad used to always say, because I tell my children, I have one that's not even in the house no more, and I've told them, since she was 15 or 16, this world doesn't want anything more than to chew you up and spit you out.
That's
and some
right.
people say,
Amen.
well, that's a twisted way to look at the world. Well, most people haven't seen what I've seen. I've
Yep.
seen humanity at the absolute worst possible stuff. And I mean, it's one thing to go and learn history about the bad men, you know, Stalin, Hitler, Mussolini, all these bad men in recent history. But we had a bad man not that long ago named Saddam.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that he did was right on par with all those people.
Yeah.
But it's not taught like that in history.
No.
I mean, he's taught he was an opponent or whatever. But I mean, going over there and seeing where they had sex dungeons for his sons, where they tortured mentally handicapped people to death and killed them for fun, for no other reason, snatched people up off the streets that didn't agree, that got too loud of a voice, was teaching a little too much stuff
Yeah.
from their college positions or whatever it was. And I mean, you look at pictures of Iraq in the late 70s, and it was a vacation
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
It was really
very
nice.
modern, very nice.
Very nice. And then
Yep.
flipped it over, and
Yep.
and none of that's accidental. None
No.
of the stuff that's happened in the last, I'd say, the last 25 years that I've bore witness to, none of it is accidental. Very, very, very little of it is accidental. It's very well coordinated. And I'm not saying our government has done all of it. I'm just saying they know of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And so when you think of, man, eggs are so expensive. Well, yeah, they essentially declared war on game
Yeah.
and wildlife this year. I mean,
Yeah.
they're like, somebody might have sneezed on this cow, so we need to kill 25,000 heads of cattle.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, this chicken I forgot the real name for it, but it had beak rot. We need to kill 1 million chickens right now. Just ludicrous, absolute ludicrousness.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're like, that's crazy. Eggs have went up so much. No, we wiped out like a fifth of the chickens that we had
Yeah.
in a month. And then you see all the stuff, and like, you've been talking about that train is slowing down. Well, when you get enough friction going, it's exponential. So the train will slow down and it builds up friction. That's how it's slowing down. But at one point will become exponential, and instead of gradually, once it gets to a certain point, it's going to jolt shut.
Yeah.
And just like the people on the train is going to be shaking around and thrown out of their seats, that's how everybody in society is going to be.
Yeah.
Even if you're preparing for it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see the train stop, it's going to be bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard someone the other day in the comments said something like that. Preppers are going to be shocked too. You know, the preppers are going to. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, just because that I'm prepared, just because you're prepared as much as we can be, doesn't mean that, you know, if the lights went out tomorrow or whatever, that we wouldn't be shocked, that we wouldn't be,
Right.
you know,
Unaffected.
set. Yeah, we certainly would be. We know
100%.
that.
Yeah.
That's not. I'm not prepping so that I'm not affected by it.
Right.
It's an after the shell shock is over. What do you do then? You know, how do you react after that? That's where the prepping comes
Yeah.
in. That's why we do what we do. It's why we do the community stuff, our families, all that, because it's important. And
It's the lifeline.
yeah, and
Community.
it's gonna happen. I mean, we at this point with me, it's not if, it's when. We don't know the severity, but you know, looking at everything that's going on, things are definitely worsening. And that's why we got to keep getting ready. It's why we, you know, like we started this whole video out, you know, if you've got gear, if you've got stuff, firearms, whatever it is, get out and practice with it, train with it, get comfortable with it. whatever your plan is.
Mm-hmm.
Get out and go over it. Plan it. If you have an evacuation plan for your house, whether there's a fire or you're overrun by marauders, whatever it is,
Yeah.
you may have it. You may even have written out a little map like you see in a hospital. You are here, and this is the exit.
Right.
But have you actually done it?
Yeah.
Have you done it in bad weather?
Right.
Like, have you done it at night? Does your family really know where they're supposed to go? That kind of stuff. And you get everyone ready, and all this stuff we've talked about for the last almost half hour.
Right.
That's what it all is, because government's not going to come save you, and like you said,
If they're coming, it ain't to save you.
Yeah, it's not to save you. And like you said just a few minutes ago, most likely a lot of the people around you, neighbors and stuff, that you might think could be someone that would be helpful and stuff. I mean,
you better find out now.
Yeah, you better find out now, because when people get hungry, really, really, really hungry,
watching their children starve to
death. Their babies are laying there crying because their stomachs are turning inside out and everything.
Mm-hmm.
They're capable of doing things that
anything.
Anything.
I mean,
So that's why you got to prepare, and that's why you got to work with people, and not just the two of us, but within our community. That's what we're working together, so that we get to know each other, and so we build that trust, and then we train like we did as a group today. We train together, and it's that kind of stuff is so necessary, because I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon.
You're only as strong as your weakest link, so it only helps, like we were talking last week, it only helps to invest in those. So you got people that don't know, hey, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, just start.
Yeah.
Starting now is still going to be better than not starting.
Yeah.
And and when the grid goes down and all this stuff happens, everyone thinks marauders and horrible things, shootouts and all this stuff, but people forget most people have lost the art of being able to tell what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah.
So tornado sirens don't go off when there's no electricity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about that. A tornado comes, I've been through 3 of them, and we had one where the air raid siren didn't go off because it never got serviced and it was broke, because we lived in a, BFE part of Kentucky. But I mean, when you wake up, it sounds like a freight train, and you have seconds to make it to cover. That's why you need to prep, because we lost 70% of our whole town. And I mean the actual town, not farms. I mean the farms, it's not like it sucked all the grass off the ground, but I mean the houses, there was just concrete where the basements were gone. Livestock was killed. When I lived in Wyoming, same thing happened. A huge tornado, never heard of, hit, and it's just sucking up hundreds of head of cattle. And that's, you can't, it's not like you can stock up for a tornado, but I mean, but if you're going to be without power, it doesn't take, especially this time of year, a big winter storm come in, ice, knock out the power lines, and with that bad weather, I mean, living in various places that we've lived, we've been a month without power. And you can't run a generator for a month, especially if you can't get to the, go to the gas station.
Because gas may be out power too. They can't even run the pumps after so many days.
And plus, I mean, a decent-sized generator to keep things going. Well, it's freezing outside, first of all, so you don't need to run your refrigerator and stuff. People do that. Don't run your refrigerator if it's 8 below zero outside.
Exactly.
Okay? You don't need to. Just get some coolers, throw it out there. And, but I mean, you can't run a generator forever unless you are those people that, you can afford to have your own gas station built on your property and stuff.
Yeah.
You're probably not watching this.
Yeah.
To begin with.
We know you're not watching this channel, Bill Gates.
Unless you're like, oh, the plebes sure are entertaining. If you have you have to, the hardest decision you have to make when it hits the fan is which bunker you're going to go to, right? This one has the waterfall I really like. That's the one I want to go to this month.
That's a problem to have.
Or you're on your yacht in Morocco forgetting about as the world burns. But, but I mean, you need to be prepared, because I don't like to say the word prepper, because my great-grandparents, my grandparents, they never knew what that was. It was just like, you got produce coming in. If you got 10 acres of tomatoes coming in, because that one time we had close to 600 acres.
Mm-hmm.
You got 10 acres of tomatoes coming in. Well, what are you going to do? You can't eat 10 acres of tomatoes. We're talking about, 1,800 bushels.
Yeah.
You need to get everybody in and be like, listen, everybody's getting 15 pounds of tomatoes, but we're having a cannon party this week.
Yeah.
But that was just the way it is.
Yeah.
If you think of anything that the life of living in a country that has a lot of stuff has given us, like jam and jellies, those are those were delicacies.
Yeah.
But that's how you preserve berries. That's why they did it. That wasn't like, man, I can't wait to eat some peanut butter and jelly sandwich. No, if you want to keep berries, they go bad really fast.
Yes.
You have to preserve them. Salt, acid, sugar, that's how you preserve things. Vinegar.
Yeah.
So that's when we think of, eating 30 pounds of pickles because we can.
Yeah.
Well, back then, that's how you kept
Yeah.
your produce. And I think people don't think about that. But, I mean, for a family my size, if you have, like I know you were talking the other day about people were like, well, how about 5 acres? Yeah, you can live on 5 acres.
Yeah.
If you got a half a dozen people or close to there, you're going to need to be growing a lot of stuff.
Yes.
You get down to 3 acres, you're going to have to get really, 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 like, almost become an engineer.
Yeah. Really creative.
When you're like, well, all I can get is an acre.
Yeah.
You better be good at trapping.
Yeah.
Not hunting, because it takes too much time. You need to go out and set about 100 traps, and every 3 days go through there and reset them and catch your game, because 1 acre, you can effectively feed a couple people.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 or 4 if you have smaller children.
Yeah.
But, I mean, tonight we had hamburgers, and we were all hungry, and we put down 4 pounds of hamburger in minutes.
Yeah.
Green beans, we went through
7 cans, 8 cans.
8 cans of green beans.
Yep.
Mixed vegetables, like 5 pounds of mixed vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, and we eat pretty light.
Yeah.
We usually, everybody's like, oh, I'm still kind of hungry. Well, good.
Yeah.
You have a reason to wake up in the morning and do
Yep.
some work. There's nothing wrong with going to bed hungry.
No.
Okay? If your stomach's bloated out and your arms and legs are turned into noodles, that's different. But, I mean, if you go to bed and you're like, I'm not full. Well, you shouldn't be eating, especially with the way things are going.
Yeah.
You need to train yourself to eat till you're not hungry.
Right.
And, I mean, 10 minutes before you eat, drink some warm water.
Yeah.
Nobody drinks water. You shouldn't be drinking water all through the meal because you're diluting your stomach acid. You're becoming ineffective, and you're going to get heartburn.
Yeah.
But I mean, you need to really think about that stuff. Critiquing how you eat, how you drink, because it's a lost art. But it was. I mean, we're not. I mean, all the animals, if you look at them, they have a routine.
Yes.
They eat. They do this,
Mm-hmm.
and then they drink.
Yeah.
Like cows, you'll see cows graze sometimes more than an entire day before they ever go for water.
Yeah.
Horses,
Hours and hours.
Yeah. I mean, that's their job, is to eat.
Yeah.
That's all they do. And I mean, they can do other things, but I mean, they're not holding down a steady job and paying rent. But I mean, you have to realize, as the society that we have, consumers, you think 50 years ago when my grandparents and your grandparents were alive, 50 years ago, 76%, somewhere in that, I'm not 100%, but it's in the mid-70s, had a family garden. 70-some%. And that wasn't like growing like 8 things of chives and a couple jalapeno plants. I mean, like a garden.
A garden.
Yeah, berries, tomatoes. We grew up that way.
Yeah.
Making our own jams. And then farmers, I mean, everybody had at least 1 or 2 farmers in their family.
Yeah.
Everybody
They were everywhere. Everyone knew a farmer.
Yeah, and now you've consolidated until you have these proverbial gigantic all the eggs in one basket.
Right.
So like if Nebraska and Iowa, was to get hit with a meteor, I mean that's not impossible.
No.
But I mean, that land is so flat. I mean, if you got a really bad windstorm come through there, and I've lived there, and they happen, 90, 100-mile-an-hour winds for like a day. A fire started, you can't put it out. That would be 40% of all the grain in the United States gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
You have to wait an entire year, and you're behind schedule on everything. But I mean, people have to realize the prep's not just the government crashing,
Right.
I mean, civilization. That stuff is definitely happening.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, it was just you think of the stuff that our families, not to name anybody in particular, but our families lived through the Great Depression.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, the government started that and caused it. You see the theme happening here, right?
Yeah.
Nothing is new under the sun. And just like they're like, you know what'll help? Social Security.
Hey.
Everyone can have this. We're all gonna have fried chickens, right? Fried chickens in the kitchen, right? Because they said that because there was people eating cabbage and potato soup for years, and the thought of being able to eat a chicken, fried chicken especially, if you know how to make it. But that time is coming, and people don't realize, like, when you have livestock, you're gonna have to protect them because everybody's gonna. People don't realize, oh, I have milking goats and cows.
Right.
I can get milk from them. No, they're going to be like, I can shoot that cow and make some food.
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't even know how to mess with the meat or preserve
they don't
it.
care. And if they do kill it, they'll cut off one steak or roast or
cut
something.
A leg off.
Yeah, cut a leg off and leave the whole rest of it there.
Let the coyotes.
Yeah, and then now no one got any of it.
Or, I mean, the stories of people had livestock. Somebody in my family, a horse died, and they're like, this will be the first time we've had a lot of meat in a long time. It's not kosher, but we are also starving to death. So
Exactly.
You have to come to that place. But I mean, it's going to get exponentially worse here in the next 6 months. I promise.
Right. I agree. That's why we got to keep getting ready. Yeah, and I know that there's so many of you out there that get it. You have that ear to hear, and I applaud you and keep working at it. Some of you, I mean, I'm not putting you down, but probably need to take a little bit more seriously.
You got to crank it up.
Yeah, it's serious. There's a lot going on, brother.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on here.
Always glad to.
Awesome. I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. I mean, it's better than just hearing me yap all the time.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, anytime that two beards can come together and discuss such discussions,
the earth shakes and rumbles and moves.
I mean, there's some Aristotle's preaching going on here.
I'm sure. Yep.
The two beards come together under the blood moon.
Yeah.
Right?
All right, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Folks, it's serious. I mean, we try to have a light heart about it because, I mean, what can you do? But the seriousness is that you got to get ready. You got to keep pushing yourself whenever you think that you've maxed out on how much food you can put up or whatever it is. Push a little harder because it's serious. It's time to get your houses in order. I mean, it's been that time for a while. Get yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually prepared because it's the world is getting to a point where it's gonna, I believe, forever change. It's not gonna look anything like you've ever seen before. I really do.
100%.
Yep. All right, folks. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.